Is he going to go all the way? He's still going.
Nice, they found it hold here.
Good stepping from Twala. There's the opening try. Steaming down the field.
It's a very good morning from Pretoria, sunny Pretoria, as we are about to get underway for the Under-16A clash between Affies and Diamantveld. Affies were clinical in the fixture preceding this, the Under-15s. It's two teams that are standouts in their provinces. They often make up the vast majority of the numbers of the Under-16 Grand Como Week teams for both Griquas and for the Bulls. But what we'd like to see today is players playing to the spirit of the game, playing an open game. The Diamantveld have their numbers, so it's easier for us to call and identify them. Affies do not, as Diamantveld kick off deep, carried up by Affies just short of the 22. They'll look to clear. Number 10, Dolph Holt, gets the ball just outside the 22. Not much ground gained, so territorial win there for Diamantveld. Hooker Vas Hofmeyer look to secure first phase and ease the nerves a bit. Goes to the bat, he overthrows, but it's taken. Well held in the tackle there by Affies. You can see their defensive organisation. Diamantveld stand quite deep. You can see Affies right over the ball there, looking for the turnover. Are they supporting their body weight? They are. Diamantveld take the ball out. It's number 7, JP Sinacol, takes the ball up there, out to midfield. They go left now to the big number 5. It's a good pop pass. A few pick and goes, drawing defenders on the blind side. Some good yardage here. It's a very good first passage of play by the visitors. Again, Diamantveld take it deep. It's number 13, Marcus Maria, who takes the ball up. He takes a big hit, but he stands strong in contact. There was some great offloading from Diamantveld there, but losing the ball in contact, that pass possibly wasn't on. Affies will definitely look to just calm themselves down here. It's not a position they're used to finding themselves, but this is a good Diamantveld team. It's a well-conditioned team. It's definitely a well-drilled team. They'll be disappointed to not come away with points. They'll definitely want to make sure that whenever they're in the 22 in the red zone of Affies, they come away with some sort of reward. With that said, their forward pack has been pretty dominant in the tight exchanges. We'll see what this first scrum goes like. Feed by Affies, number 9, Arman Chaya. You look to clear his lines here. He puts a bit of pressure on his fly half, but it's cleared up to halfway. The ball's bouncing all over the place. It's taken by Farmer, Diamantveld, number 13. Again, Affies right over the ball there. You can see it's something that's important to them to look for the break. But again, big number 4 in midfield. Oh, number 4, Jankos Yokati, is a ranging runner. He found himself in the midfield, playing quite loose. He put away his number 11 there, AJ Conradi. Put him away into the gap. He would have expected to finish. He had the line in front of him, essentially. He had some space. All the hard work was done, so he'll be disappointed with that effort. Diamantveld have given Affies a large blind side. They look to take it up, which they do. Oh, it's a great step there in midfield. He's got support. Affies flyer ranging away. Can he be brought down? He scores in the left-hand corner. And that there is exactly what we were talking about. We're talking about Diamantveld. When they're in the 22 of Affies, they want to come away with points because that's how quickly it can happen. That's how quickly they can turn a relatively bad territorial position with a great inside step. You can see here he's looking for the support. He gets it. Just draws away from the cover defense. And at that point, there's nothing he can do. Not the easiest first kick here. About 5 meters infield. He's brought it back, so he obviously backs himself with the distance, as you would in Pretoria. Solid strike, but he's just hooked it slightly. Regardless, given the fact that Diamantveld were so dominant in those early exchanges, Affies will feel a bit happier to come away with some points. For Diamantveld, they're a lesson learned for them. Be interesting to see if they once again go deep. I feel they should. They've got a player in Affies territory. Left-footed chip there. Taking Affies, and again breaking a few half tackles. The box kick coming up. It's not a bad one. There's lots of Affies players behind it. It's allowed to bounce back. Affies regather, but it's been thrown quite wildly. You can see it's early in the season for them. Oh, it's a big step here by Samba. He's definitely got wheels. And there's no fullback or wing back for Diamantveld. It's allowed to bounce. Diamantveld far half. There's nothing really he could do there. Young Dolph holes, but the results of that is again just some loose plays here, allowing Affies back into the red zone. And with respect to Diamantveld and their impressive pack, if Affies get a drive going on here, they could very well double their lead. The drive does come. They're well set. Diamantveld are finding it difficult to stop the drive, and indeed the try is scored there by Affies. So well rehearsed, so well orchestrated, you can almost tell what was coming. What's clear for Diamantveld is the looser they let the game go, if they give Affies any sort of ball, any sort of possession, allow them to play the game that they want to play. They're quite clinical, especially on home turf. These are boys that have played together for a few years now. A lot of them have played at the high level, played under 30 in Craven Week. They'll be prime candidates to play Grand Coma Week. It's also a big stage for them. It's a big crowd. It's a field that's revered within the school. 100 years of history. Numerous Blue Bulls and Springboks have played in these very jerseys. He takes the kick. Again, he strikes it well, but he just hooks it. The distance is never a problem for him. Diamantveld would, to an extent, feel aggrieved by this score. They've been in the match since the beginning. They'll be grateful that it's only 10-0. So the margin is by no means insurmountable. What they'll have to do at this point, Diamantveld, is they're going to have to put real defensive pressure on Affies. They can't give them any room to work with. You wonder what sort of defensive organization pattern they've worked on, but if you would think that at least some rush defense is needed here, because to give Affies any sort of space, we've seen their flyers on the wing, the outer backs are impressive. They're also standing quite deep, Diamantveld. They're taking the ball back. They've worked it through their hands, but they haven't made much yardage. Again, the ball is spilled. It's allowing Affies to play on. Looked to be a knock-on there, and the ref eventually has given that. The players play on. They haven't heard the whistle. But again, Diamantveld, no. Another lesson learned. They have to keep the ball in hand. 50-50 passes just aren't going to do here. 50-50 passes can often result in Affies try in the corner. They seem to favour this left-hand corner. What Diamantveld do have is they've got a bit of size in their midfield. Big Alexander Farmer has taken the ball up well. Marcus Maria's centre partner is also impressive, but they just haven't got solid ball. They're standing very flat. It's taken short side. It's cleared by Holes. The left-footed fly half for Diamantveld. He hasn't got much yardage there. The short line out from Affies. You'd expect they've got some heavies in midfield there. You'd expect to take it direct. Straight up the guts. Almost certainly coming. But it's overthrown, collected at the back. Drawn pass straight through midfield, and again breaking the half tackle, just getting the momentum over the advantage line of Affies. Ball chipped over the top. Diamantveld Hooker's backtracking there. He overruns it, loses control of the ball. The try is not awarded, however. The ref are judging it to have been slightly knocked on there by Affies. As you can see, Hooker backtracking. He's looking up a bit to see where support players are. It hasn't gone over the line yet. He's almost just banging for it to cross the line so he can dot it for a 22. He doesn't. Fortunate enough for the ball to be adjudged to have gone forward. Diamantveld have a bit of a blind side to play with. The big number 8 runs with it. Again, they use their size. They've got some yardage here. Inside ball. Good to see Volder van Niekerk brought it to play their full back. But they've turned the ball over here. They've lost it. Affies take it up. A pick and go. They give it some width here. They've got some to play with. It's a poor pass to Sakane Mangai. Someone who hasn't seen the ball as of yet. But plenty of pace to work with on the outside. Well, there was some enterprising play and some brave play from Diamantveld. Run the ball out of their own 22 on the short side, but it wasn't the worst result. They've got the ball back. They're playing, again, very deep. Running a lateral angle there is Diamantveld Santa Marie. A few pick and goes here. They've got some space to work with. The Affies defensive line is very flat. The pop ball through to JP Senecal. And indeed, Affies were too flat in the defensive line. Offside adjudged there. In midfield. Right on the cricket pitch. It's clear Affies were caught napping a bit there. But it's clear their players anyway. Onto the 22. Now, a good attacking platform here for Diamantveld. They've done well to get themselves to work their way up a good 50 meters up the field. They've looked impressive when they're able to secure the ball and keep it in hand. They've got to do the same here. Again, a very deep back line. They're on the line out's on the 22, and most of their back line is on the halfway line. They've given themselves some width. It turns out that it's worked in the end. They're driven back again. Again, those impressive lock forwards with their hands for Diamantveld. Pick and go. He breaks them, has the half break. Another pick and go. Affies have to keep their discipline here. They're giving away a penalty would allow Diamantveld back into the game. Affies are very tight around the breakdown there. They've given them a slight short side, but it's not something Diamantveld not going to take up just yet. It's lost. Affies running from their own line. They've got some space here. It's kicked through. Some backtracking from Diamantveld. The ball's let bounce. Oh, it's just kicked, fortunately. Kicked into the hands of Farmer. He did well to get back there. Never easy to backtrack. Well, the Diamantveld coaching staff will be disappointed. Not so much in the way that the scoreline's gone to start with, but the fact that they've been in this game. Affies struggled in the beginning to find their feet, and Diamantveld were dominant, but they just haven't converted. They'll have to convert, because you've just got the feeling that Affies in the last quarter of the game might look to pull away. They've got fantastic depth at the school, so what often happens is that the bench is extremely strong. They come on with fresh legs, and it's often too much for opponents. But still in this game, still very much a contest. We pull it wide. It's a great take there on the right wing, but Mangai ran onto the pass tremendously. Ball's been lost. And again, it's something we've seen today. Players looking for an offload when perhaps it's not their better option, just to secure the ball, work through a few more phases. Let your impressive forwards take it up. Just consolidate possession. So the result wasn't what Mangai wanted. But we saw how much pace he's got running onto the pass. Ball to be fed by Diamantveld. I can see number 9, Wynand Botha. He's been impressive. He's marshalled his forward pack. It's a solid scrum by Diamantveld. They look to run it out their own line. It's cleared down midfield, straight into the hands of Affies. Tall, ranging fullback Jean-Louis van Rensburg. Ball bobbles around a bit, not a judge before. Diamantveld won it back. There's acres of room in the backfield. And then a very impressive clearance. Diamantveld's left foot to fly off. Dove holes. It's definitely the general of the team. Look at the sidestep here. As we said, it's a rangy runner. Tall fullback. Did his job, did the pop, it just didn't work out. So Affies take it up, give it some depth. The players slipping. There's been a bit of rainfall in Gauteng overnight, as you can see by the cricket pitch. And just there, still a bit muddy early on this morning. Kick across. Franco Dorth finding himself a bit isolated there. And indeed, Affies win the turnover. You can see the really well-drilled team on the ground. It's not just the open sides and the loose forwards who are expected to get in there and win the ball back. That looked to be Razimba Samba, the left wing, got himself involved. Hunter Fenter, the Affies hooker, incredibly tall for a hooker, but he's been accurate to date. As you see, no contest there from Diamantveld. Absorbing all the pressure, allowing Affies to maul it up, which they've done. Difficult to stop. They're just a few inches away. Oh, decision made there by Diamantveld's outside centre Alexander Farmer to go for the intercept. He saw the overlap there, went for broke. In the end, it didn't work out, but it wasn't the worst decision considering. He could see that his outside backs were outnumbered, perhaps in a bit of trouble. Took the chance, and although Affies have the feed for the scrum, turns out to have been a smart call. Now, decent blindside to work with here, at least 15 meters for Affies. Impressive outside back, St. Louis van Rensburg. And some are available, but they take it direct, straight up the middle. It was far too easy from Diamantveld's point of view. They won't be happy but with the way that tackles were just broken at will. But again, another indication that as much as set plays work, just a direct, hard run by a big man, dropping his shoulder, handing off. It's a bit of head of steam, very difficult to stop. First successful conversion there for Affies. Right up in front. That'll do his confidence the world of good. So, 20 minutes played here. Affies with a dominant 17-0 lead. To be fair to Diamantveld, they've been better than that, but they're just not able to convert on the pressure that they're causing. It's a good kickoff there. Ball taken on the Affies 22. You can see that they're building their confidence. There's a lot of runners willing to take the ball up, even deep into their own territory. Taken in backfield, some work to do. Ball pilfered there in contact. Affies have turnover and they have numbers on the left. Possibly great work at the breakdown there by Diamantveld, and they needed to be honest. Affies had about 4 or 5 players on the left-hand side here. In midfield. Well, Dolph Hollis has backed himself here on the halfway line. It's just to the right of centre field. You'd be fortunate enough that it's not on the cricket pitch, which is incredibly difficult for a kicker to have his footing, especially when there's a bit of mud about. For under 16 level, this is a incredibly long kick. We are, of course, at altitude in Pretoria, so he's got a few extra meters to work with. It's not a bad option for Diamantveld. If you can get on the board here, psychologically opens their account. It also shows Affies that they can't give away any penalties in their own territory. He keeps it low, slips slightly, doesn't make the ground. Affies consider running it from their own line. It's well cleared. Picked up well by Franco Dorth there. The right wing playing on the left. He takes the ball up. Centre field. It's a good kick return there. The referee awards the penalty. It looked like Affies didn't roll away. There's a quick tap there by Diamantveld. Number 4, Siokati. Maybe not the best option in that they could have won good yardage. Again, Diamantveld's number 7, JP Senekal. He's everywhere. He's a good runner. Oh. Ball stolen here. Recovered by Farmer. He's put the kick in. There's a gap. The bounce is coming. He's following his own kick. Oh, great bit of play there by Affies. Oh, and taken up. Regathered from the kick. Number 12, Marie. He's been good. They've got to score here at Diamantveld, and they do. Just when they needed it. Just when they needed to get back into this game. With the kick to come, without trying to put the markers on Hollis, you would back him to get this. That would bring it to a 10-point game. As we can see here, attempted clearance. Caught. Looked like that was Marie, the impressive darting number 12 center for Diamantveld. Ball taken up by Siokati. He's been everywhere. He's a busy tight forward. And indeed, it is converted. Diamantveld right back in this. If they could perhaps get another score, whether it be a 5-pointer or a 3, they'll back themselves to get a bit of momentum and be right back into this game in the second half. Put Affies under a bit of pressure. They're a team that's used to dominating many of the games they play. Teams like that generally aren't used to pressure. Not that anyone enjoys it. It's regathered here. Chance for a big run by Diamantveld's number 8, Nazim Boyce. Looks to be an impressive runner. We haven't seen him much with ball in hand. They need to get it in his midst a lot more. Penalty here in midfield, just in front of the 22 to Affies. And after conceding that score, they take the reasonable option of going for posts. So Diamantveld would be disappointed there after a great try that got them right back into the game. Almost immediately from kickoff, conceding the penalty. Potentially another 3 points, just to drift them further away, just to open the margin. No mistake, the conversion is good. And we're back to a 13-point game. Some orders from the Diamantveld coaching staff. They're pretty clear in what they want from their charges. Ball taken again, lost in contact. And that's a result of a very good weighted kick by Diamantveld. Player just lifted his head from Affies, looked what was coming and lost control. Diamantveld have the ball. They attempt to keep it tight. Looks like it's being held up by Affies. They've got to get it out there. Again, it's this impressive number 7, JP Sienekal. He's been everywhere. He's a busy player. He's a strong ball carrier, but he's got some hands as well. Ruben Priet is the number 5. Another impressive lock from Diamantveld. The ball's turned over and cleared by Affies. He lets it bounce, which is not the best option. And that's why it's a messy play. Number 21, Biervis, is asked to recover. It'd be interesting. Diamantveld look to run it out their own lines here. And it's a good move in the end. Some great yardage. Looked to be Dorth, the right wing, who took the ball up the centre. And it's a wild pass there. Recovered by Farmer. What did he look to do? Looks to kick. Well, he's just thrown a wild pass there. Diamantveld are going back at a rate of knots. And it's a big tackle there from behind on Dorth. Looks like it was Samba who caught him unawares with a big hit. Caused him to lose control of the ball. Affies with another set piece. So, can Diamantveld hold out here? Another score would be a big psychological blow if Affies has to get through. A fantastic line. He draws 2 defenders. Perfectly timed pass. And with that type of pass of that quality and With that running line, splits open the defence. Diamantveld are under their own posts. It looks to be a 20-point game here, and Affies just pulling away slightly. And the margin is indeed 20 points. A few of the Diamantveld reserves warming up here. They might look to make some changes. It's still early on in the season. A lot of these teams have been playing 1, 2, maybe 3 warm-up fixtures prior to this. But they want to build some depth in their squad, not work their charges too hard. It's been a long trip for them from Kimberley to Pretoria. As Affies again have the confidence to run from their own territory. Their pass looked to have gone forward. It's unfortunate. The ref calls for half time. Well, it's a half of disappointment for Diamantveld. They were right in the game in the early half of it. There's patches where they were dominant. They had some strong runners. Certain individuals are really impressive, but Affies as a collective unit, so hard to stop when they get a few phases, when they get a few set pieces. 27-7 at the half of the under-16 game. Back in the second half of this under-16A clash between Affies and Diamantveld. I'm joined by Songezo Makbete.
Perfect. Well done, Fossey. Well done, Price Foss. That's me.
So Songezo, what we saw in the first half is that Diamantveld had a strong start. They pushed Affies into their own territory in early exchanges. They didn't capitalize. They didn't score when they were in the red zone of Affies. Affies a lot of the time scored from turnovers. They've got some pace on the outside. Their wingers, Samba and Mangani, both got wings, as does Jean-Louis van Rensburg, the tall, ranging fullback.
Sure. I think what is often the case in sport, if you don't use your early opportunities or capitalize on possession, you oftentimes get caught on the counter because your defensive patterns at that stage in any event have not formed, and the team who has been under pressure are just looking but for one opportunity just to change things up a bit. And that's exactly what we saw in the first half. Affies were under a bit of the pressure. They absorbed it well because they didn't leak points. The time that they did with possession of the ball, they made it count, and that sort of drained and sort of took the energy out of Diamantveld because they didn't really look to come back in the game until late in the first half, I beg your pardon, where there was a bit of noise in the crowd as well, and they suddenly believed that they could still hang in there. And in the one opportunity that they did capitalize, unfortunately still they leaked in a try, so they almost undid all of the good work that they had done. But nonetheless, we do hope to get a better second half this time around with a bit more opposition from DHS, who man to man, they haven't really looked the weaker side, but they just haven't been able to gel and get the final third going.
No, for sure, they've got some impressive characters. Their fly half, the left-footed Dolph Hollis, has been impressive. He's marshaled the troops. Played quite deep, though. Number 13, Alexander Farmer, has also been an imposing physical character, but it's just been a bit loose as Affies again look to break away from turnover ball. Taking 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders, draw and pass.
Yeah, if Affies go wide here, Diamantveld will be exposed because, again, their defensive patterns are not really settled in the sense, but they were just fortunate there to have a bit of time. But on the wing there, Tsakane has an opportunity to put it down. Oh, good scrambling defense by Diamantveld in the end. They were just lucky to get back into it and have the defensive forms, but Affies have got all to do still. They've got the manpower there. They're very close to the try line. And I'm sure referee Glenn there is looking forward to awarding another 5-pointer to the men in green.
Pick and go from Affies. See, when they build the phases, they're so dangerous. They're so well drilled. Looks to be a high tackle there. Could be in trouble. Hand around the neck. Affies giving it some width. They've got players on the outside. Should be a score. Oh, he lifts his head.
Would you believe it? Would you believe it? Butterfingers at the time at least needed. It was just literally man for man, and that he saw himself putting the ball over the try line before he actually had it. It's just a question of composure. Still under 16 rugby, you would expect. I mean, this is what, first year of open rugby in the old days. Now it's still limited to age group. You would expect some of those basics. Draw your man pass, catch the ball before you can look forward to the try line. But nonetheless, it's a lesson that the young man will learn. Still a long way to go in his rugby career, and some lessons are best taught at this level than any other level higher.
For sure. Smitzenberger, the tall timber, in the second row for Affies. Ball's taken in the middle.
That was a good sack.
Successful sack for Diamantveld. They've been good at the breakdown as well. They just fan out, keep their discipline here. Ball's taken up. It's big defensive hit there. But again, runners coming around the corner, running hard and direct from Affies. Got an overlap on the left. They just use it.
There we go. Perfect try. Perfect try for Samba Simba, the left wing. And I think what was instrumental there, Bryce, was the fact that they remained composed. They played good percentage rugby in making sure that you get your rucks going there. You disorganize the defense, you suck in the defenders, and there you see over there were plenty of numbers on the outside. One long pass, effectively taking out 3 defenders from Diamantveld. Open try line for Simba on the back there, which was all good build-up play. They took their time. There's no need to rush like they might have done in the phase earlier before when they dropped the ball on the edge there. They simply took their time, consolidated, and there was no need to rush. It's only, 4 minutes into this game, and they've already scored a try. Good composure.
Absolutely, and the advantages here of having outside backs on the end of these moves, scoring in the corner, it's what they do best. Difficult kick here right in the corner.
It'll be a confidence booster for sure if he gets it over.
We saw in the first half, distance wasn't really a problem with him. just direction. Hooked it on a few occasions.
Yeah, he's only converted one, which is or two actually. He would want to improve on that. It's not to be this time around. From the young fly half from Affies, youngster Heymans. Stefan.
Now, Diamantveld for most of the first half didn't look to go deep with their kickoffs. They looked to contest, did put a few Affies players under pressure, some unforced errors from the kickoff. But that said, when they were deep in Affies territory, they did look dangerous. So will they look to put them back? They do go deep. They've given Affies a bit too much time to clear. So kick and clearance.
I think you mentioned an important point there when you say they've given Affies too much time to clear. I was watching if whether or not there'd be follow-up after the kick. The kick and chase is so important in rugby because it forces the opposition, first of all, to make decisions quickly in their own in-goal area or in their own 22. And in high-pressure stakes environment, you're probably going to force the mistake, you're going to force them to kick the ball out. And at that time, they will forfeit distance for certainty. And the body language that I was reading now from Diamantveld, they were just lethargic in getting there. They need to behave in a manner that shows a bit of urgency. They need to believe that one try, two tries can quickly become a game-on situation now. A deficit of 25 points in their mind, they shouldn't allow that to settle because they've got plenty of time in this half. It's only 7 minutes in, another 20 or so minutes to go. 22 minutes to go. There's plenty of time to change their fortunes in this half, but they need to consolidate. They need to make sure their set piece is right. But before any of that is won in the field of play, when the ball is dead, they need to talk among themselves. They need to get to the rucks. They need to get to the scrums. They need to get to the line-outs. They need to be clapping hands and tapping each other on the backs and things like that, just to create that impression to Affies that it's not over until it is over. And then, when you get an opportunity, when you win an opposition line-out, when you get that intercept try, when you charge that kick down, suddenly the tails will be up and Affies will consider themselves to be, okay, well, we don't have a lead to protect now, we've got a game to win. And the mindset in those different situations is very different.
Yeah, what we saw from the last line out there, unforced error from Affies, overthrown again. And these are the type of balls, turnover ball, Affies have to quickly align themselves defensively. This is where Diamantveld have to look to score.
Yeah, unforced error. Had to let go. He was on the ground. Referee judged it to have been held in the tackle, so he had to let go or place it. Those are the small errors, of course, Diamantveld cannot, at this point of the game, afford. They can't afford it at any other point in the game, for sure, because of the score deficit that they are on.
Yeah, when you come to Affies, play a team like Affies, they're not as impressive as they are and have the depth that they have. You've got to put them under pressure, but you've also got to be perfect yourself and well disciplined. And when you get the half break, you can't be conceding penalties like that. We spoke of the depth of Affies. A few of their players off their bench look to be coming on with fresh legs. That'll make things difficult for Diamantveld. They have already taken a few of their starters off the field. As Affies take it up, quickly off the top line-out ball. One-off runners everywhere. You see Affies, the outside backs looking to clear. It's everyone's jobs, not just the loose forwards. They lose it in contact. Diamantveld have shown with some aggressive defensive play, they can turn this Affies team. Often what happens here is teams come to Affies, they a bit overawed by the location, the occasion, and the school they're playing against.
And the opposition, for sure.
They quickly realize that they're in the game. They can compete with Affies, but at that point, the
game is gone, for sure.
The game is gone.
I think it will be interesting to see is how the bench of Affies takes to the occasion, because at times, and depending on when the bench is deployed, they can either slow the game down or increase the tempo. Right now, they probably will at least be a good fit, because I don't get a sense from the Diamantveld scrum. As you can see, it's on the back foot right now. There's a necessary urgency. And also, because of the lack of size that Diamantveld enjoy against the beefier pack against them, whilst in the first half you won't necessarily always notice that, in the second half, when the body gets weary, when the scrums start taking their toll and you don't have a bench that can compensate for that, then it becomes a real long day in the office. And it looks like, on the account of what we've seen certainly in this second half, it might just be that for the side from Kimberley, Diamantveld.
Credit to the Diamantveld coaching staff. Quite a few of their starters already on the bench, so they're giving their bench players almost an entire half here to stake a claim for selection for the rest of the season. It's well run at the front there of the line-outs. It's a good ball. Attempted steal from Affies. Breakaway there by JP Seneko. He was everywhere in the first half.
Immense.
Loop around pass between Dov Holes and his scrum off Buerta, but didn't gain much in the area of yardage. They're not really going anywhere. Static runners. Big tight head Franco Janssen takes the ball up for Diamantveld. Oh, looked to be a chip kick there. Didn't go very far. It's given possession away to Affies.
I'm not so sure if the men in green are actually observing the last foot on the defense in the set piece or even in the tight loose as we see now, because a couple of times where Diamantveld it could have been on if they were given just that extra second or two, but because Affies are not observing the offside line, and I don't think the referee Glenn is up to it, it's certainly in making sure that he just keeps them on their toes in that regard, a bit of the momentum that could otherwise have gone to Diamantveld has been slowed.
Absolutely, and of course at schoolboy level the refs don't have the advantage of assistant referees in their ears, professionals who can observe those sort of things. So it's in many respects even harder for schoolboy referees in terms of the support they don't get. Often the linesmen are very passionate schoolboy spectators or coaches of the various teams, do their best to assist, but they often stay out of the fray and leave it to the referee to handle those sort of calls.
And I think that's the way it should happen. First of all, you get your real training here as a referee, because the spectators are right on the touchline. Not necessarily in this game, but generally speaking, that's what you have, and in club rugby. This is where you learn. These where the mistakes are to be made, because, I mean, I think the pressure and the intensity and the ramifications, the higher you go in the levels of rugby, especially in the professional era that we are now, the more the consequence. Not to suggest, of course, that it is dismissible. Mistakes of any kind are not encouraged, and especially when you have a situation whereby a lot of the players who are playing rugby now, many of whom will never go professional, obviously. So for them it is their pinnacle, and once you start talking first team rugby, it is essentially as big a game for some of the players it will ever be. So it is important to strike that balance, but you're right, the refereeing support, and it is increasing and it is improving with SA Rugby referees, and one of the great men of SA Rugby in club rugby, certainly from the Eastern Cape, Mr. Banks Yantolo, has done tremendous work taking over from the works of former international test referee Andre Watson.
This ball's taken up here by Affies, lost in contact but deemed to have gone backwards. Nevertheless, it is turnover ball from Diamantveld. What can they do here? They look to run it out deep inside their own territory. Affies counter ruck is strong, deemed to be illegal, not keeping their footing. So slight reprieve there for Diamantveld,
who have been very good in making sure, to the extent that they can, they're slowing the ball down at the ruck time for Affies. They're not allowing the necessary momentum. They've won a couple of turnovers in that, being able to be the first man to the breakdown in fetching. But unfortunately, it is when Affies do have control of the breakdown and they start stringing in a couple of phases with a couple of runners off the 9-10 channel, and they start sacking in defenders, where then you see the men in blue at 6s and 7s. That's why it has allowed the quick men on the outside in Risimba and Tsakane to have been able to have almost the free runs that they've enjoyed so far.
Ball overthrown by Diamantveld, but they win the penalty. Quick tap and go. Perhaps not the right call.
Yeah, signs of panic. Signs of panic when you don't consolidate. Could easily have been a three-pointer if they were that way inclined, or alternatively they could have just gone for the touchline, get themselves closer to the try line and try and set up a maul to try and put some Affies under pressure.
Well taken there by Vas Hofmeyer. The hooker for Diamantveld, catching the ball by his toes, but in the end it is the last forward by Diamantveld. What's looked to have happened here is that Diamantveld's pivotal number 10, Dolph Hulse, seems to have gone off with an injury on the far side of the field. So without that leadership to steer the team, they're making decisions that they perhaps wouldn't have made beforehand. Quick tap and goes that weren't the best decision at the time. Now, Diamantveld held their own in the scrums in the first half. We saw a dominant scrum from Affies penalised earlier. They've got their own feed just on their own 10-metre line.
I think you raise an important point. In the absence of a captain, you should almost have a succession plan on the field of play to cover for such eventualities. Yes, a captain is not unsubstitutable. It's not that he will never be substituted or even injured. And you need a situation whereby it's clear within the setup of the team that in the situation where you lose your captain, who steps up to the plate. And that's what allows, as we have seen now, a couple of indecisions, players taking initiative that they perhaps might not necessarily take in the presence of their captain, and that has a way of destabilizing the team further, which is going to be then a greater impact than not just having the captain, but not having a captain and somebody in that position to take over the leadership reins.
Yeah, Affies is impressive outside back. Tian Nevert, who's won so many running yards so far, look to kick the ball there, make some good yardage. Diamantveld had the feed, overthrown yet again. Affies have turnover ball, they take it up. They've had a lot of one-off runners who take the ball very close to the breakdown, right back into their support. Again, contesting at the breakdown from Diamantveld. A poor pass. It's an opportunity for Diamantveld to break away, but it's well picked up.
It was great play. Even better tackle.
Some of the Diamantveld reserves staking a claim for selection here. They've been impressive. Diamantveld have, in fairness, lost nothing with the bench players coming on here.
No, they haven't, and that is just a textbook tackle, although I would have preferred his head be on the backside of the play because you've got to protect the neck and the head area. Otherwise, a great tackle just certainly proved effective.
Hofmeyer with the feed. And again, it's messy ball there. Tapped back by Affies. They regain possession. Diamantveld scatter. Some ill discipline there from Diamantveld, putting a hand in. Just giving Affies another chance for a penalty. If we looked at the game plan in the first half, we could very well see another driving more here.
Without a doubt, I put everything I own on this one. Affies are going to get the ball, probably at the back, drive it up and start peeling off from the back and try and get the ball under the post or further left of field.
With that said, they have removed a few players from the line out, a few heavies in the back line.
There we go.
But here it comes. Successful sack relatively from Diamantveld, but Affies still have possession.
Yeah, they've got the beefy boy standing now in the fly-off channel. How many phases will it take? That's the question. Diamantveld, of course, already up for it.
They've got the width, they've got the numbers.
It was only a matter of time. But Sima Samba going on for his second try in this half, 18 minutes, 19 minutes into it. And it was just classic. It was obvious what was going to happen. Get the ball, set up a maul, suck in some of the defenders, disorientate them in the 9, 10, 12 channel even. Have a couple of the beefier boys pull through. And then once you start spreading the ball, your channels are clear because you know exactly what it is that you want to achieve. Your outside backs have been drawn in because of the men on the inside who have continuously been sucked in. And that's why it's always going to happen where you're going to have a 2 to 3 man overlap. In your more established defensive patterns, of course, that's when you get to respond accordingly. That's when you peel some of your men out and put them in the channels to get your flankers and your number 8s to take on the big boys coming through so that you keep your fly half loose. You don't want to get your fly half drawn because he organizes the defense. If you can get your 10 and your 12 loose all the time to always be there to control that first channel, certainly, it's easier for the men on the outside as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the Diamantveld first team later on can cope with that level of organization of Affies, but every coach's dream is to see the wingers score in the corner after working through the phases as a team. Samba's been a beneficiary, but like a good finisher, he finds himself at the right place at the right time. He reads the game very well.
And look forward.
Did look forward. Diamantveld managed to keep possession. Affies a single play in the back play. There's some opportunity for some gaps. He could put it too deep. A small chip might have been a better option.
Tsakane wants to run.
He stepped a few players. A loose pass, but he gets away with it because Affies players are there in their numbers. The game becoming a bit loose here. A bit of aerial ping pong.
Fanika did well with that kick. It's a pity it didn't go out. Here's an opportunity now for Affies to just loosen up their legs and play with the kind of freedom that they can because of the scoreboard giving them an allowance of 30 whole points.
Again, Affies breaking tackles, breaking half tackles, getting valuable yardage. Diamantveld falling backwards at a rate of knots. He puts the chip in, it wasn't there. He had the speedster on the outside. Mangani would have been calling for the ball. He's looking to pin his ears back. He would have backed himself to get on the outside of his opposite man. So disappointment for the winger. The scrum set in midfield.
In the time that does remain, if there's anything that would always be encouraging for any coach, despite the losing cause one's team might find itself in, is the willingness not to give up, the willingness to play, the willingness to try and win those 50-50 balls, getting themselves to the ruck and putting themselves in a position to compete. For sure they're playing against a better and bigger side, but at the same time, like the number 7 has done consistently in Seneca, just take the game to the opposition, make them work for their points, make them earn their victory, put it to them as well that I am up to the challenge. And if you can get the inspiration coming from another 3 or 4 players, suddenly the tempo changes, the mood changes, and then it becomes infectious. And if you have a whole team who have that sort of mindset where despite the result, despite whether or not we're going to win this game, we are not going to lose our character, because this is ultimately, it becomes that. It becomes a character building opportunity for them nonetheless, because they've got a whole long season ahead of them, the men from Kimberley, and they don't want to go back there and look to dominate in their region.
Yeah, we've seen Alexander Farmer putting in a few chip kicks, trying to bring something special to the table. It's hasn't worked out, but he's just tried to do something different. He's such a strong ball runner.
Those are good hands.
Affies again with the numbers on the left. What are the odds here on Samba scoring again in the corner?
Your guess is as good as mine. What I can tell you though for sure, we're going to see a try soon. Everything just happens according to the script that we've seen in the 23 minutes so far this game. This half, rather.
Yeah, Affies playing like the Bulls teams of old. You know what's coming. It's often, sometimes, even deemed predictable. It doesn't mean you can stop it. It doesn't mean you can stop a man. Going right down the middle there, drawing defenders, handing off, pushing off would-be tackles.
Yeah, it looked good. I think the Affies coaching staff can be very proud in terms of how at least some of the aspects of good basics of rugby that will never change despite the law changes and whatever else that is an evolution of the game. Certain things will just never change. Staying on your feet for as long as possible, trying to break the tackle and freeing the arm so that the flow of the game can go on. A man should never die with the ball, and I think we've seen this happening a little bit better in the men in green side. In fact, a whole lot better in the men in green as we have seen in the men in blue. But more than that, the support play and the interplay between the backs and the forwards, the willingness to go out wide and the backs' willingness to get dirty. We've seen the two wings, specifically Samba and Mangai, being prepared to go and hit the ruck. Those sorts of things stay with you. Those are the sorts of things that give a team a momentum.
No, absolutely. And one thing that would be interesting is if you look at the various fixture lists domestically of Diamantveld and Affies, Diamantveld are so dominant in their region. There's some other good schools around, but if you look at the provincial selections, the Craven Weeks, the Grand Coma Weeks, they make up such a large portion of the teams, whereas for Affies, you would think that with the level of opposition they play against, week in and week out, every game is a tough game. So in terms of playing under pressure, playing under the cosh, playing against opponents who are just as good as you every week, it just lifts their level. You're forced to lift your level. as an Affies player.
For sure. No, there's certainly no two ways about that. But I mean, I think an advantage of being dominant in a particular region, you can at least have settled combinations, because that's what tends to at least be one of the teething problems of your weeks when two teams, or when a team is assembled from many schools, the combinations don't quite gel. You might have two very wonderful players in the 9 and 10 berths, for instance, but because they don't have a combination that's developed, it might even be easier for a region like Diamantveld, a school like Diamantveld, to dominate their region, to take their 9 and 10. The understandings in the set piece between your 9 and 10, your hooker and your locks for the purposes of it controlling the lineouts, the communication between the back three, those combinations do help.
Now in the final few minutes of the game, what both sets of coaches will look for is if the players can forget the scoreboard, forget the lead, and just look at the basics. Now, if you look at this previous try here, it'd be disappointing from Diamantveld's part, having been so strong defensively earlier on. And they've just made a few unforced errors, possibly due to being tired of draining defensive work. Obviously, takes so much more out of you than attacking play, getting up and down, competing at the breakdown.
So, less than 5 minutes to go in this, the under-16A game between Afrikaansians Hoërskool and Diamantveld Hoërskool van Kimberley af. It's been a very dominant display of typical Northern Transvaal former rugby. The Witbulle, or the Groenbulle as they are known in this part of the world. They're green now because they are wearing green, but the first teams are always going to be in white, and they're the Witbulle. They dominate, they certainly do. It's Affies, it's typical South African forward-dominated rugby, and the script has been the same throughout in this particular game. The men from Kimberley have got a lot to think about. Not so much the rugby aspects, that they've got to get a couple of things right, which will always form the basis of competitive sport. Making sure that the attitude is right. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just wanted to see a bit more fight, and I wanted to hear a bit more noise from them.
Absolutely, and again we see the searing pace there. Look to be Tian de Wet, the outside centre of Affies. He's been impressive all day. He's used the boot once or twice, but
that was scintillating.
You can see why with that run. He usually backs himself. 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders there. Breaks the last tackle. Had momentum by the time the last defender had got there.
I don't know if we will have an opportunity to see that run again, but the number 22, just before he made the tackle, and I'd mentioned earlier on that his head position in the previous tackle, when he made a tackle on the Tsakane brother, his head position was not in the right side of the tackle. It was in front of the run, as opposed to making sure you hit with the shoulder and put your head behind him. And he bailed out at the 11th hour there, because he obviously understood the danger that came with it. And it was him bailing out that gave the runner there an opportunity to just literally pass him. So it is critical to get the position of the tackle right, particularly the head in the tackle.
Yeah, at under 16 level, those sort of bad habits that you don't actually notice, you want to get that out your system, because once you get to the seniors, something wrong could happen, and you don't want to have to learn the hard way. Some mistake there by Affies, allowing the ball to bounce from the kickoff means they're in their own 22. Diamantveld will look to compete, but so far Affies have been incredibly consistent in the set piece as they are there. Ball off the top. They look to run it through midfield. Flat defenders. Players on the shoulder there of every ball runner. You can see they stand in pods of 2 or 3.
For sure.
Which gives them a gap on the outside.
Plenty.
Clean break. He regathers. He's got players on the outside. Doesn't look for the pop. Probably the better option. Consolidate possession.
All the men in blue are offside on this near side to us. All of them are offside.
Well ahead of the last man's feet. It's not stopping Affies from getting dominant ball, although a loose pass there. Regathered back in their own 10-meter line. Possibly a bit of a hard tackle there. Ref allows play to go on. Affies still have possession. chip kick here. Both wingers over the ball.
They're getting involved.
Affies.
In the space of 2 meters, you had your 11 and 14 in one ruck.
Which just shows their willingness to go looking for work, and also the confidence of Affies.
I think confidence is it. Willingness to look for work, of course, but just the confidence to know that my wing channel, so to speak, or the outside is covered by one of my men.
Final stages here for Diamantveld. They'll be looking for a confidence boost. They want to come away with another score. They've been inconsistent for most of the game, but in fairness to them, they've been better than a single score game. Certain players have stood out, perhaps not the cohesion that they would have looked for. It's a shorter line out here. They should win by numbers. They come down the middle, look to split the line out and make a break down the middle. It's Affies players over the ball. Impressive how the Affies wingers look to get involved in the rough stuff. Oh, he loses his footing there. Look to cut in the dummy pass. It's a good line there by Ruben Pino, the number 6 for Diamantveld, but static runners for Diamantveld.
Yeah, momentum spoiled. Hopefully one final hurrah. Oh, too late. 30 it is. 49 points to 7, comprehensively beaten the men from Kimberley. Affies walking away with the 42-point advantage in what has been for them a very dominant display of forward play, which translated into backs who just had so much time to play. We saw a lot of their tries scoring with 2 or 3 men in the overlap, and some work for the men from Kimberley, a lot for them to think about and their coaching staff, but nonetheless, in the end, rugby has been the winner. It was a game played in good spirits, and the men from Affies will be very, very pleased to have gotten this one out of the way and look forward to what hopefully for them will be a dominant season.
49-7 the final score here. Affies under 16A against Diamantveld. Seniors to come.